So between 2014 and 15, I spent about 6 months living in Cuba. It was a surreal experience, like going back in time, you know, just when there were horses and mules around and stuff, and as everyone's seen, the old cars, but they're really just amalgams of newer pieces these days. There aren't too many cars with fully original bodies and everything, and engines and stuff. But anyway, I arrived in Havana, and then I travelled all over the country, and then went down to as far as Baracoa. Well, actually, Punta Maisi, which is as close as you can get to Haiti, as possible, basically there. That's just outside of Baracoa, which is, I suppose, down in the east, you would say, if the island's like this. But anyway, I rode up the coast as well when I was down in Baracoa to explore on a bike. And at one point I was coming back towards Baracoa, and I was on the bike. I think someone was walking as well, and then someone was on a motorbike, another guy was on a motorbike, and another guy was on a horse. So it was all these forms of transport, and I just looked over, and it was amazing to see us all going along. And then I think a car even probably passed as well. And then I met some army guys there, and they wanted $1 to get something, I suppose. They wanted an American dollar. I don't even know if I had an American dollar. Maybe I did, but I gave them something in the end. And then the guy was really nice. He said, "Oh, there's a house up there, and if you go to it, then my mother's there, and she'll make you beans and stuff." And so I could have gone there to get that if I wanted to. But anyway, I left Baracoa after about a month and went to Santiago de Cuba and spent about another month or two there, I think it was. And when I went to try and see my friends, I had to walk around to the house to see if they were there, because he didn't have a phone. It was before, you know, there was any kind of internet data. I think there might have been some options around, but they weren't very good. And some people had phones, but, you know, it was pretty patchy, all of that stuff. So it was just like I was back in the 80s or something, when there wasn't the technology around. And I didn't even touch the internet for the whole 6 months that I was there in Cuba either, because it didn't really work. There was an internal system, a mailing system, but I wasn't a part of that anyway. And there were no Wi-Fi places like I know there are now. So I was just inside this world, totally inside this world, and it was amazing. And I'd walk along, and then people would invite me into their houses, and I'd go into their houses and they'd tell me their stories and stuff, and say how they've got a relative outside who's sending them things and money, or sometimes someone comes back and brings them things. And there was all these systems to get things to people, to get money to people, to get items to people, because you'd go into supermarkets and there wouldn't be anything there. But you could find restaurants where there was really beautiful food. And I found, you know, fresh eggs and fresh fish and everything. But on the street then I was sometimes eating a 10-cent pizza, which I liked. It seemed to go down well. And then I'd get money, which is peanuts, which is they were crushed and then blended with sugar or maybe honey. And they made these bars, and I'd eat them quite a lot, or have a mango juice, or some other fizzy drink that was made out of a bottle, like a beer bottle that had just been sliced off. So you just get these little drinks. And I'd get yogurt and stuff as well in Santiago de Cuba, and cubanos, like the sandwiches with ham and cheese, a few other things in them, pickles and stuff. They were beautiful. I felt like I was getting really good nutrition. And at one stage I was staying at a house, and I met some taxi driver, or a driver, and he wanted to take me down to where Fidel was hiding in the mountains, the Sierra Maestra, I think it is, so the highest point in Cuba. And he was going to drive me all the way and then drive me back again. He wanted to buy some pigs for Christmas to cook them, to make a spit roast, I suppose. And then the mother at the house was checking the guy and said, "You make sure you bring him back. Make sure he comes back safely." And the guy was like, "Oh, yep." And anyway, I went down there, went up into the mountains, and then I met a Danish couple as well, and they came back with me in the end in that same car, and we broke down outside of Santiago de Cuba, and he wanted the full fee, but I think we gave him less, and then we just got on a bus to get back into the city. But yeah, exploring around the city and going everywhere. I had a friend there, and he was wonderful. He always took care of me, protected me everywhere. So we'd walk everywhere in Havana, all through Santiago de Cuba, any street, and then going through all these houses, meeting people and stuff, tons of people and other families and things. And so you see this world that's outside the tourist areas. I didn't even see any other tourists. I was just in this other world. And then I think I spent New Year's Day at some friend's house, and they made up some basic food. They didn't have much, but they still made up some food and some good fresh food. And I bought some other things as well. But yeah, it was a lot of just seeing what life was like. And yeah, as a tourist, it was okay, but to continue to live there, everything would get heavy. And if you go in with money, then people come and you have to buy everyone food and stuff. And if you went in with more money, then more people would come. So everyone ends up poor in that kind of situation, because there isn't really any investment, or maybe in those social circles, then there wasn't any point in trying to make an investment in something. I think because it wouldn't work out. I mean, there'd be too many problems along the way. I think my friend's brother had a truck, and it had broken down. He needed $5,000 or something to fix it, like a big truck, a transport truck, and so everything had stopped just because of that. They couldn't transport anything, and yeah, it would have been good if I could help them more, but I did what I could anyway. And my friend was in Santiago de Cuba, and he wanted to go back to his brothers in Havana, and we were going to get a bus, and I just said, oh, let's get a plane, because a ticket for him was only $10. So I bought him a ticket, and we got on the plane and went back to Havana together. I got him out of there, and then we stayed at his brother's house, and we met other people there as well, right inside this community. And it was surreal again, but really heavy too, I suppose. And then, so halfway through it, I left just because of the visa, I think it was, and I went to Dominica, and I went up the top of the highest mountain there, and I went through, where was it, San Martin as well, through there too. Met some good people there, and then I thought, well, let me go to Antarctica, because it was the season to go there, the summer season, and I thought I'd get on a cruise or find a way down there, because if you arrive there at that time in 2014-15, you could arrive and then get 50% off cruise down there, or tour down there. But I went from Cuba basically down to Ushuaia, the entire length of South America, the entire continent, and then down to the southernmost tip pretty much in Ushuaia. Arrived there, and I looked out the window from the airport, and I thought, I'm going back. I'm going to go back. It's not the time to be here. It's not my time to be here, to be in Antarctica. And so I didn't even leave the airport. I just bought another ticket and went all the way back. But I went through Colombia, and then I saw some friends there as well. I arrived in the morning, I think. I was going through Argentina, actually, and lightning struck the plane as we were coming in. And so we were supposed to continue on the same plane, but we had to change planes. And then we were going through Colombia, through Bogota, and my friends happened to be there, some Colombian friends. I arrived in the morning, and then I had a flight in the evening, I think, back to Cuba. And so I went to my friend's house, and they put on all this food, and it was amazing, nothing like that really exists in Cuba, all the variety and everything. So I saw them just for a few hours, and then my friend helped me buy a few things, because I was going to buy a few things to take back to Cuba for some people, just things that they couldn't get. Some things like secateurs, like to cut flowers, because a person I met, he sold flowers, so he needed some good secateurs to cut flower stems. so I got them for him, for example. And then, so I got my flight, went back to Cuba for another 3 months, and in Havana, everywhere. And so I left Santiago de Cuba, and I was staying near Matanzas in La Boca, I think, and then further down was Varadero, where all the tourists go usually. But I was back in this other place, and it was actually where Ernest Hemingway stayed for some time as well. So, and I wrote a book there as well, Under Cuban Stars. So I finished that there, my time there. I think I spent 2 or 3 months there. And one time I went to Varadero with my friend, and we were walking along, and the police came along and they arrested him because he was with a foreigner. And so they're trying to protect foreigners usually. They think that someone's going to take the foreigner back to their house and then rob them or whatever. But anyway, he said, "No, don't leave me. Come to the police station. Come to the police station." But I went back to the house that I was staying at because I knew that the owner knew the immigration people and the police and everyone, and so went back there. But by the time I got back, because I had to get 2 buses back, and it took ages. I think it was 2 or 3 hours to get back or something like that. Got back there, and he'd already been let out because he'd phoned the owner as well. I think he knew the number somehow, and then the owner got him out of there. So it worked out in the end, because I didn't want to go to the police station, then be stuck there and have no one else to talk to, and then maybe I'd be in a similar situation as before, where they just interrogate me the whole time. I thought it was better to go back and try and get the owner, and then he could sort it out. But yeah, it worked out in the end, so it was okay. And so I stayed there for a few months and went to the beaches there and just saw how life was again. And it was absolutely surreal as well. I'd go to another friend's house and we'd have to flag down a horse to get bread, and they just hand you the bread in their hands, and then the guy also had yogurt in a big container, and he'd just pour it into another container if you wanted that. He'd come past about 5 o'clock in the evening on certain days, and then just walking everywhere as well, walking through this landscape and stuff too, and then eating that food that I was talking about, the peanut bars and mango juice and sandwiches, and then beautiful beans, black beans as well. I think it was the black beans that really built my muscle tone. I was having them every day, black beans and pork and rice and stuff. So I could get really good food as well, and it was quite cheap too. But then after that, went back to Bogota with went back to Havana with my friend, and we met his girlfriend at the time, and she had a little baby as well. I think a three-week-old baby or something. And so I met tiny Cuban, and then I was going to leave, and there was only one hostel there at that time in Havana, or that I knew of, and so I went there, and then I met foreigners for the first time in pretty much 6 months, and that was surreal too, because I realised that everywhere around in Cuba, then talking to the people, then people desperate for something, for an opportunity, and it was totally understandable as well. But they thought that I could provide that opportunity, and I did what I could, like I always do every time. But it was too much. I didn't have the resources to totally change people's lives and stuff. It's quite hard. You really need to start a business, and then you have to have everything, prepare for everything that could unfold as well. Because if something breaks, you have to buy a new thing, otherwise everything stops. And that's what happened, I gathered. Lots of people would start things and then just stop because they couldn't afford that chunk of money to buy the new thing, whatever it was, like the engine in the case of my friend's brother. But yeah, I stayed at this hostel, and then went out with some of the people there, and went out for dinner one time, and I remember that, and we were just talking, and it was so strange for me because we were just talking about normal stuff, and they weren't looking for anything from me, and it was an interesting sensation. But yeah, in the end, I was going to leave, and I went to the airport actually, and they wouldn't let me leave because I was going to Colombia, but I didn't have an exit ticket, and there was no way to use the internet to buy a ticket or anything. So I had to talk to the guy, and my friend was helping me try to negotiate with him, the airline person from the airline, because there was no way for me to buy a ticket. I couldn't even use a credit card, I don't think, there. So eventually they let me on the plane after I said that yes, I would buy an exit ticket out of Colombia, because I haven't bought one. I always have an exit ticket. And so left Cuba at last after 6 months. This life, this whole world that existed there, I left that, and Fidel was still alive at that time as well. I think the Pope came, the Pope came to visit as well, and then left and arrived back in Colombia, and it was a world of colour and products and food everywhere, and it was surreal again to see that, just going from a black and white world to a world of colour. And like I said, as a tourist in Cuba, then you know you're leaving at some point, so it's okay. It's idyllic in some ways, the weather, and that you can walk around, it's safe and everything, and I could find good food and stuff, and I liked all the architecture and things. But to live there, I think it would become heavier and heavier, and so that's why I really felt it when I got back to Colombia. And then, you know, you've got the internet and everything, and then you start getting addicted to all those things again instead of talking to people. So that was my experience there in Cuba.